So good to see you again, friend. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant to have you back, and I'm told that you'll be joining us regularly on a Saturday evening, which is so exciting. Let's talk about Harry. Well, we can't wait to have you. Let's talk about Harry and Meghan, a photo shoot for Time magazine. Tell me more.
Well, I mean, it really stormed the internet, didn't it? And what really was crazy to me is I had all of these Sussex fans in my inbox, like, we told you so. See, this was not an American chosen, voted on cover of a magazine. These are a bunch of old dudes at Time magazine that are high-fiving each other because they got people to look up from their smartphones. These are the Sussex's friends. It's one of their chosen publications that they've worked with since they moved to America. They have extreme relationships here with the media. You can access the Sussexes if you're with People Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Time Magazine. These are just a couple of the New York Times. These are just a couple of the publications that the Sussexes have relationships with here in the States. A year ago, they did that explosive television special with the Time 100 where they encouraged people to vote. Which is against royal protocol, and that made headlines all over the place. So this is an established relationship. This is a public relations move. And, people are quite humored by the choice of photo on the cover and some of the photos on the inside, the memes going around that Harry looks like Meghan's hairdresser. And saying that they look like they're fake. They look like, almost princesses, cartoons. And I would say, to put my best foot forward here, I appreciate Time Magazine putting a vet on the cover. I appreciate the fact that they put somebody that chose to serve in Afghanistan twice. I appreciate that fact, but this is not a popularity contest. These people are not necessarily really influential in the United States. And can I just read that they say specifically the people that are included in this list are changing the world regardless of the consequences of their actions. And I think that defines the Sussexes perfectly. It's really the consequences of their actions that make these two relevant. They really are never thinking about the consequences of their actions. And what it's doing is it's eliminating the one relationship that makes them relevant, and that's their relationship with the royal family.
Yes, I think the only thing they're doing to the world is boring it to tears, Kinsey, but it is big publicity. What did you make of the body language of that front cover photograph?
I mean, it's really cringe, if I'm being honest, and I don't mean to be, I just think that it should, Meghan's all about equality. Then why are you standing in the front of your husband while he's cowering down? There were so many different options that they could have gone with here. I loved the picture that they took last year where she's sitting in a chair and he's kind of standing above her. I just thought it was a really uncomfortable and unflattering photo. And I wondered if they realized what the reaction would be, if they thought about that when they saw it. Also, if you break down the cost of Meghan's outfits, jewelry, and all of it, it's insane to think about all of the costs of those things when when the magazine's about how philanthropic you are.
Yeah, and he's physically lowered himself to make himself shorter, and it's a very sort of subordinate message that's being sent out, which is that Meghan's in charge.
Well, we knew that, didn't we? I mean, I totally agree with you. I don't understand what the objective was there. And to be quite honest, royal watchers really wanted on Harry's birthday, what they wanted was to see Lily. And we don't have to see Lily's face. It could have been cute at-home photos of the back of her head and Archie running around in the background. But this is not what royal watchers wanted. What royal watchers want is to see them as a family, and I think it would benefit them for people to see them as a loving family and not expensive clothes, big fake hair. Some say fake hair on Harry's head. I think it would really benefit them to be humbled or to look humble, and for us to see that loving family. And we're not asking to see faces. We're not asking for an invasion of privacy. This would be the perfect opportunity for them to show us the family, because they were in control of every aspect of this photo shoot. They were even in control of the article. A friend wrote it. So this would have been such a great opportunity for them to introduce us to their family.
Now, the President, Joe Biden, has fallen out with his counterpart, Emmanuel Macron, in France over a torn-up deal by the French to provide diesel-powered submarines to Australia in the South China Seas. Instead, the Americans and the Australians have done a deal with the UK. How's this going down stateside?
Well, I can tell you that the State Department is concerned about the relationship, and they said they're going to work within the next few days to try to figure out what can be done. But what can be done? About $40 million. That's a lot of money. In regards to the entertainment world, it's become a joke. Last night on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, he joked that the US, Australia, and the UK have formed a menage a trois, and the French are jealous because they invented it. He also joked that perhaps we partnered with them. We're going to give them submarines so we can keep the Hemsworth brothers. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that it's already being made fun of around the late night rounds. In fact, when Jimmy Fallon told the audience that the French have compared Biden to President Trump, that was like the biggest laugh he got. And that wasn't even a joke. That was like a factual statement. So I'd say that we are not too concerned about the relationship with France right now. I think that we're kind of feeling like we got the best end of the deal.
Yes, and does it bode well for that special relationship? Biden does a deal with Boris.
Well, you know, we love our Boris over there. I think that it does make us look like a strong entity. I don't know if I agree with the way that it was executed. If it's true that the French learned about it through the media and it wasn't a private conversation that was had, that's not good business. That's just simply not good business. So while I think that it's probably in our best interest, the way everything worked out, I do wish that it would have been handled differently, because I don't think that there would be such venom if there would have been a private conversation had.
And Kinsey, you mentioned Boris. I mean, what do the Americans think of Boris? Do they know who he is?
I did not know you were the one that told me he had so many children, which good for him. I mean, what a champ. But in regards to leadership, I do think that he comes across as an intelligent leader. And I do think that we are fond of him, but I also wonder if it's because he's kind of a character. At first, I would have compared him years ago. I would have compared him to Donald Trump, but I don't think so anymore. But he is so much of a character. The disheveled hair. I mean, it's just we love that kind of stuff. Also, it's the way he speaks. So I think that Americans are fans of him. Maybe more so because he's so unique and not necessarily what we see with our politicians.
And I believe that he certainly, until recently, had an American passport. He's half American, Boris Johnson. Are Americans aware of that?
No, I don't think so. But come on over. We'll get some In-N-Out burger. Maybe
he could be president once he ceased to be prime minister. Let's talk about Nicki Minaj, who's a rap superstar, in hot water for drawing attention to the story of a cousin with inflated testicles as a result of having the COVID vaccine. Now, let me make clear that we cannot stand that story up, no pun intended. But what's the reaction been in America to her comments about the vaccine, about how you should inform yourself and it should be personal choice?
Well, I have to clarify. It's Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend's testicles that we're concerned about, you know, which I'm not a testicle expert, but I was
Speak for yourself.
For them. Yeah. Here's the situation. She has received a lot of negative feedback for this. Obviously, it's, you know, kind of like urban myth telephone game. I heard this from somebody else. and I'm going to send it out to my millions of followers. Probably not the best. Any publicist is like cringing, melting in their seat when they get that phone call. I would say there are a couple things going on. Thank God somebody started the conversation of why Americans aren't being vaccinated. You heard Biden's tone when he was recently when he implemented these new rules in regards to companies that have over 100 employees must be vaccinated, must get tested weekly. The tone was really condescending. It was stern. It was angry. And it's as if he was talking to Trumpers or people that were rebelling. I think that the people that are not getting vaccinated in the States, it's an issue of fear. It's not necessarily somebody that is resisting. It is legitimate fear. It's a misunderstanding. They're scared for their safety. They don't understand the process. And I think this conversation, or this tweet, I should say, has opened up that conversation. I'm grateful for that. But the reality is it was an ignorant tweet. It was an unfortunate, it's an unfortunate example that she's given. And also some people are saying, and I hate to even go here, but I do think it's important to stress, some people are wondering if the tweet in itself was to distract from the fact that her husband failed to register as a sex offender in the city of Los Angeles, which has gotten them in a lot of trouble. Her brother has been in trouble for sex assault accusations. So was this to deflect from some of the negative PR she's got? Because it's not, I never thought in my lifetime I'd see grandmas retweeting Nicki Minaj, and here we are. So while it has a lot of negative implications, the consequences were not all positive. She did touch a brand new base, and she totally changed the narrative of the conversations that were happening around her, and quickly.
Kinsey, you mentioned Joe Biden. He's had something of an up and down week. He announced this new deal with Australia and the UK. He remembered Boris Johnson's name. He didn't do so well with ScoMo, the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Take a look at this.
Thank you, Boris. And I want to thank that fellow down under. Thank you very much, pal. Appreciate it, Mr. Prime Minister.
That fella down under. What have the American media made of that awkward moment?
Well, I will tell you that I think that there are so many awkward moments with Joe Biden that the media just so many slide under the radar. And this was kind of one of them. They did not make a big deal out of this at all. And I was actually watching some Australian media where Mr. Morrison said that he actually calls him pal over the phone. And so the news anchors were like, oh, so he legitimately does not know your name. So that is a pretty good question, whether or not he actually knows his name, and this is just, or he legitimately considers him his pal, we don't know. But it's just a typical Tuesday for Joe Biden when it comes to saying things that don't necessarily make sense, and it's actually become a running joke that his people try to make sure that nothing is unscripted because they're so fearful of what he might say.
Fascinating stuff. Kinsey, very briefly, an earthquake in Los Angeles, a serious one?
Well, I have to tell you, I will be brief. I've only really acknowledged 3 in my life. That while I've been here, I've only felt 3, and this was one of them. And it was like the movie scenes where everything around you starts shaking. It's the biggest one I have felt, but it wasn't necessarily a big one for locals. But it was quite a thrill. I felt like the earth was flirting with me, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, I'm glad that you put a positive spin on it. I'm glad you're okay as well. And can't wait to catch up in a week's time.